What's up, everyone? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and it is time for my college football upset alert games for the Week 12 of the 2022 college football season. And how this video works, I give you 4 games each. I give you 4 games that are most likely to be an upset, and then 4 games that are not supposed to be, or most not likely to be an upset. That's how my videos work. And like I said, I just do top 25 teams for my upset alert videos. We've been doing this ever since the college football season began, and we've had some big surprises over the upset alert videos over the year, so I'm pretty excited for another weekend of college football. Of course, going back to last week, we had some pretty big upsets that were not most likely to be an upset. Washington upsetting Oregon on the road. That was a pretty good one there. And then you had some, other upsets that happened last week. I mean, UCLA losing to Arizona. That wasn't on my upset alert video. I mean, pretty much I thought UCLA would roll over Arizona in that game, but it turned out to be a lot closer than we expected. I think this weekend is going to be a little bit more, of another chaos a little bit. I mean, of course, we got some big games coming up. The first couple weeks of November have been really close, so yeah, upset alert's been a busy one here so far in the first couple weeks of November. But let's get right into it here with my upset alerts for Week 12 of the 2022 season. We'll start with the games that are not most likely to be an upset, and we'll start with this one in the SEC. It's Tennessee and South Carolina, 7 o'clock game here this Saturday on ESPN. It's a road game for Tennessee. Tennessee favored by 21.5 points in this game, so about 3 touchdown favor. The over and under at 66. Tennessee was number 5 in the college football playoff rankings Tuesday night. And, I think I would kind of, think this is a trap game here for Tennessee. I think, South Carolina and Tennessee, when they step out on the field every year, it's always a completely close game. It's always one of those games that, really comes down to, second place in the SEC East or something like that. It used to be like that, but now it's really not supposed to be. South Carolina is not a terrible team. I know they've had some losses this year that they could have won. In the Missouri game, they could have won easily, but, obviously Missouri's gotten better. And they got beat down by Florida last week as well. So, I don't think Spencer Rattler is a bad quarterback at all. He just gets pressured a lot in the games like this. And, Hendon Hooker's getting pressured more these days. In the last 2 weeks, they've been, eyeing Hendon Hooker a lot in this, these last few weeks. So, but Tennessee favored by 21.5 going into this game. Tennessee 9-1, has to win out in order to make the playoff. I just say it's a trap game. This is not a terrible South Carolina team. This is a decent team, not a quality team, not a great team or anything like that, just a decent team overall. But a 7 o'clock game here, so it's a night game here for Tennessee. It's on the road, and Columbia is obviously really a tough place to play in the SEC. So that's my first, most not likely to be an upset alert type game. Second game here, we go to the Big Ten. It's Michigan and Illinois. Michigan favored by 18 in this one. The noon game here on ABC, and I'm really surprised that Michigan is not favored by over 20 points. Let's be honest, Illinois has now lost 3 games in the Big Ten, obviously to Indiana in early September, and then they lost 2 straight, to Michigan State, and then last week against Purdue. So they have a lot to regroup. This is an Illinois team that I thought would make a New Year's Six Bowl at the end of the year, and I thought they would win the Big Ten West, but now things are starting to shape up in the Big Ten West. You got Purdue, you got Illinois, Wisconsin, Iowa has a chance to win that Big Ten West and head to the Big Ten Championship. For Michigan, they have one more game here this weekend before that big game against Ohio State. Now, they can't overlook Ohio State yet. I mean, they can't, overlook Illinois yet. I mean, they're probably focused on this game, but what if they're not focused at all? What if they're not focused going into this game against Illinois and they're just focused on Ohio State? Well, I don't really know doubt about it. I mean, Michigan, obviously, I think will roll over in this game. The offense is strong. The defense is strong. Pretty much every side of the ball for Michigan's pretty strong. Let's be honest. I mean, they are a top, offense maybe in the Big Ten. Maybe Ohio State is right in front of them, but, it's really coming down to that game that next weekend. But Michigan has to deal with Illinois first, so that's a game right there that is really favored Michigan, 18 points in this one. It's a noon game. All right, let's go to the third game. We go back to the SEC. We got top-ranked Georgia heading on the road to face Kentucky. 3:30 game here on CBS, and Georgia's favored by 22.5 points. And I don't think this one will be really pretty. I don't think Kentucky fans will be really, excited for this one. They probably would have been if they got that win over Vanderbilt this past weekend, which they lost that game. Now, for Kentucky, is Mark Stoops on the hot seat? Well, pretty much not yet, but if he finishes the season at 6-6 and loses a bowl game at the end of the year, I think he's definitely on the hot seat entering next year. I mean, honestly, I know Kentucky was going to struggle in the offensive line this season, and also, with, Chris Rodriguez back, it hasn't really helped them out. Will Levis, obviously, with that injury back then, basically they lost to South Carolina. They've lost some, really tough games this year. South Carolina, they lost to Tennessee on the road pretty badly, and they got beat by Vanderbilt and, nearly got beat by Missouri. So Kentucky's had 3 straight ugly games in the past 3 weeks. So Kentucky's going to have to pick it up, but Georgia, I think, will roll over in this game. You look at the game last week against Mississippi State, Georgia looked like the completely dominant team in the country. So I don't really see this one being all that close, though, to be honest. I think Kentucky won't be ready to play in this one. So I think Georgia will roll over in that game. That game is at 3:30. And we go to our last game here now. That is most not likely to be an upset. It's Ohio State heading on the road to face Maryland. Maryland, like I said, is a decent team in the Big Ten. This game's at 3:30 p.m. on ABC. Ohio State favored by 27.5 points. That's a big number there. I don't think Ohio State can reach that number, to be honest. I think they'll reach to 21, but yeah, I don't think Ohio State would win by more than 4 touchdowns. I think, they, have a tough one in the first half a little bit. I'm not saying that Maryland is a terrible team. I'm not saying they're a great team either. I think they are a decent team, but, maybe this is a trap game for Ohio State. Like I said with the Penn State and Maryland game back then, I know it was a home game for Penn State, but this time Maryland gets Ohio State at home. I mean, this will be a tough test for Ohio State a little bit, but I don't think they really should have any problems with them, because I think Ohio State is thinking the same thing as Michigan. Maybe they are overlooking Maryland and probably getting ready for Michigan next week, but I think Ohio State will roll over in this game. I don't really see them losing this one at all. So Ohio State will beat Maryland. I mean, that's my last game there for the upset alert videos. There were more on this list, but I couldn't really think of any, so I decided to go with these 4 games. All right, let's get to the games now that are most likely to be an upset to happen. This is the first one. It's in the Big 12. TCU and Baylor. TCU ranked number 4 in the college football playoff poll. Baylor lost last weekend to Kansas State. I was calling for an upset in that game last weekend. Maybe Baylor pulls off an upset against TCU this weekend. It could happen. Not saying it's going to happen. This game's a noon game on Fox here. Of course, it's a road game for TCU. TCU, though, is favored by 2.5 going to this game, which isn't really surprising to me whatsoever, because Baylor is obviously a tough place to play in Waco, Texas. It's always a tough place to play in Baylor. And I know Baylor's record really isn't that good, but it's not really about the record. It's really about the A game. If Baylor brings their A game to TCU, look, everybody right now in the Big 12 wants to beat TCU. That is the main team that everybody wants to beat in the Big 12 right now. And, Baylor is still in that, conversation to get to the Big 12 championship. But if they lose this game this weekend, they're pretty much out of it. I mean, Kansas State or Oklahoma State, or probably Texas, you could say, could make the Big 12 championship, because we only have a couple weeks left to go in the college football season. But let's see what happens in this game here. Am I calling an upset here? I would, absolutely say an upset is possible here. I would probably go with Baylor here. I mean, pretty much I think it's kind of similar to the Texas game last week, though, because, that game right there, hopefully it's better. Hopefully this game is better this weekend than it was last week against Texas. So hopefully this one is a high-scoring game mostly. So, all right, let's stay in the Big 12 now. Kansas State and West Virginia. This one's at 2 o'clock on the Big 12 Network. Not really surprising. I mean, I'm actually really surprised it's not an ESPN game, or maybe like a, FS1 game or something like that. Kansas State, though, 7-3 going to this one. They're ranked in the college football playoff poll. West Virginia, it's not having a good season, but, I mean, it's always a tough place to play in West Virginia. Morgantown, West Virginia. Kansas State favored by 7.5 here in this game. The over and under at 54.5. So, I mean, Kansas State is coming off a win last weekend, so against Baylor on the road. So, they faced that challenge already. Maybe they, regroup a little bit after that, win, and they also get a win here on the road at West Virginia. But it's possible. It's possible that West Virginia can pull off an upset here. I mean, it's November now. We've seen what happens in November, in the couple weeks that we've been in November. It's been a tough one so far. I mean, for all these ranked teams in the top 25, West Virginia is always a tough place to play. I know West Virginia is not a good football team, but you just never know what can happen. Kansas State, though, and West Virginia, 2 o'clock game here on the Big 12 Network. All right, let's go to the third game now. Utah and Oregon in the Pac-12, both identical 8-2 records. This one is a late game at 10:30 on ESPN. Surprisingly, it's not a 3:30 game or not, but it's a night game here. Oregon is favored by a field goal. I think it's just because of the home field advantage. Both of these teams are ranked in the top 25 in the playoff poll. Oregon took a big drop from the playoff poll. I mean, obviously, after losing to Washington this past weekend, they dropped 6 spots, I believe, so yeah, that's a big drop-off. But they still have a Pac-12 championship, title in hands. I mean, both of these teams are battling for that spot, probably. I mean, USC pretty much at the top of the Pac-12 right now, but this one is going to be a pretty interesting game here. Probably the biggest game in the Pac-12 this weekend, besides USC and UCLA, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But yeah, it's a home game for Oregon. Do I see them, repeating themselves? I really think they do. I think Bo Nix is going to be confident going into this game, and also I think the team will be, pretty angry after that loss, of course, to Washington last week, and they'll be ready to play. I think, Oregon pulls off a huge upset here. It's not a huge upset. I mean, Utah is number 10, but, I think Oregon will pull off an upset here this weekend. They'll get redemption after that loss this past weekend. All right, here's my last game now for Upset Alert for Week 12. It's in the Pac-12. It's USC and UCLA. Rival game here in the state of California. This is an 8 o'clock game on Fox. USC is favored by 2.5 points, which is really surprising. And the over and under is at 75.5, so that's a big number for over and under. UCLA, though, they are ranked number 16 in the playoff poll. USC went to number 7. They are just right behind LSU. Like I said, they probably have to win out for the rest of the year, but this is going to be a good one in the state of California, and it's going to be a good one in the Pac-12. And like I said yesterday during my video with the playoff rankings, I think UCLA can pull off an upset. I really think they do. I mean, they've done it before. I mean, against Washington earlier in the year, that win really does matter for them. And they got a chance. They really got a chance to defeat USC here. I mean, it's a rival game. You never know what can happen. It's just like Oregon and Washington this past weekend, except, Washington went on the road this past weekend and UCLA's at home this weekend. So home field advantage definitely favors UCLA. The offense, though, really favors USC in this game. I mean, we've seen what Caleb Williams can do at times when he's under pressure, and I think, he's going to have to play his biggest game here in order to be in the Heisman contender. But I'm calling an upset here. I'm going to go with UCLA to defeat USC this weekend, so really stay tuned for that game. It's going to be a good one there. Again, it's at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. And those are my Upset Alert games from Week 12 of the 2022 college football season. Let me guys know what you think down in the comments below about these Upset Alert games and getting ready for this weekend for week number 12. And keep subscribing to this channel. Follow all the content on this channel as well. And please like. And stay tuned here for more on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.